Yeah.
Well, I am delighted to say that joining us for the first Godcast of 2021 is Roger Eli. Now, Roger Eli is a former professional footballer who played in the Football League for Leeds United, Wolverhampton Wanderers, Crewe, York City, Bury, Burnley and Scunthorpe. But Roger is probably best known for his time at Burnley, where he was a key player for the Clarets in the 4th Division Championship winning side of 91-92 season. Roger Eli, Happy New Year and welcome to the Godcast. How are you?
I'm fine, Alex. Happy New Year to you. You looking well?
Thanks very much. And you're looking okay as well. So whereabouts do we find you today, Roger? Where's home for you?
Bradford, West Yorkshire.
Okay.
Yeah, the birthplace. So I've obviously settled back here. I can't see me moving anywhere else now.
Okay. And let's just get down to this football stuff. So as a young lad, and you told me you were brought up a Roman Catholic, did the church get in the way of football at all, or was church a regular item for the Eli family?
It absolutely didn't get in the way. It was regular. Although we didn't go to Catholic schools, but every Sunday morning, my mum would sort us all out and pack us off to church. The way I've always seen it, sport, football in life, religion is always been key to me.
Yeah. Did you? I've interviewed quite a few Roman Catholics. Do you go along with the view that once you're a Roman Catholic, you're always a Roman Catholic? Has that continued as a journey throughout your life, Roger?
It always has. Listen, I see the church as, you meet a lot of people that within the church, not necessarily go to church, and they're the right kind of people. And if I'm honest, that's where I like to set myself. I like to be amongst the right kind of people and to try and help and support everybody else,
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever been to lofty places like the Vatican as a pilgrim or anything like that? Or
actually, I have. Yeah, I went there. I went there as a 15-year-old. I went there with Nottingham Forest.
Right.
Brian Clough actually took the tournament, took the team, and that was such an amazing feeling. On the itinerary, it said we were having an audience with the Pope. So I actually thought we were going to have an audience a little bit more personal, but I think there were a few thousand other people there as well. But that was just an incredible experience.
I'm sure. Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. And so as a boy, you enjoyed the church, but obviously you had this blossoming football career. Were you the kind of player that attracted a lot of interest, Roger, from a lot of clubs, or was there only a few in the hat, and was your future quite clear for you?
I know it's easy to say and look back and say, yeah, my future was clear. I was always going to be a professional footballer. Yeah, naturally, that was my dream from, I don't know, the age 10 or 11. It's a difficult one because I don't want to sound conceited or anything, but if you're going to go on that pathway, you more or less know that you have to be best in the group. And if I'm honest, I have to say all the way through my schooling, I was round about there. So it was probably a natural progression. It had its problems, obviously, but I did actually feel that that's where I was going to go.
Yeah. Did any big disappointments come your way? I interviewed Andy Payton not too long ago, and he was on the youth setup at Burnley, but he actually got released, and he talked about what a huge blow it was for him. But fortunately, he got picked up by Hull City. Do you recall having any big setbacks as a young kid?
Do you know what my biggest setback was? Not getting into the England under-15s. That was it was a massive setback for me, from a point where you do well for your county, you meet players. I think I met Jamie Hoyland at the age of 14, and we've been friends. He played for Man City and Burnley, and had a fantastic career as a footballer. You actually think that you're going to, you know, I thought I was going to play for England. That was my dream. From the age of 9, I used to watch the yearly game against Scotland at Wembley. It used to be televised, and I thought, that's where I want to be. And when I didn't get there, that were a massive disappointment. And to be honest, probably for about 3 to 4 months, I actually struggled until I, you know, 1 or 2 people actually said, listen, you've got to get back on it now. And, you know, luckily I had the support there for me.
Yeah. And were you a player with a natural flair, Roger, or did you have to really work really hard to make it?
Do you know what, Alex? It's kind of a strange question because, I, as a youngster, you know, and it's something that I preach now to the younger boys, is that you've just got to keep on practicing, practice. And I could actually morph from different types of a footballer. I could be really skillful, or I could be really physical. And it's just basically practice. I also feel that if you practice, you know, you will get there. So the answer to the question is that, yeah, you know, it all depends on what type of the game it was.
Yeah. Can you remember that feeling when you got your first pro contract?
Yeah, it was fantastic, to be honest. I got my first pro contract at Leeds United, and growing up, I was a mad, passionate Leeds United supporter. And luckily, one of my favourite players who gave me the contract were Eddie Gray. And do you know what? One thing, I don't know if it happens to any other professional footballer, but it's kind of surreal. You go to a club, and luckily, fortunate, I were at a club that I supported, and you see all these players where you used to see them on Match of the Day and on various other programmes, and you're actually playing with them. But in Eddie's term, in terms of Eddie, I'm sat in his office and he's offering me this contract. So, you know, it's just marvellous, to be honest.
What was he like, Eddie Gray? I mean, when I was a kid, obviously knew that, but he was coming towards the end of his career. But he was a talented footballer, wasn't he? Was he as good a coach?
Oh, do you know, we had a group of players. See, I'm getting modern by saying group, aren't I? We had a set of players at the time at Leeds United, and some of them players were unbelievable. But I think Eddie might have been about 36, 37 at the time, and he was still incredible as well. And we had such a zest for playing. Even in the afternoons, we'd go out after training, and Eddie would give up his management duties and come out and coach us. And to actually be able to be in the company of somebody like Eddie Gray, it was just absolutely incredible. As a coach, unbelievable. As a gentleman, leadership, incredible too. So you can quite see that I like Eddie Gray, but it's what he brought me as well, what he gave to me outside the game as well.
So what players were knocking around the Leeds squad at that time, Roger?
Well, from the senior players, the ones that were just
was Brian Flynn still around in them days?
Yeah, Brian was there. Yeah, I remember having to clean Brian's boots. Great fella, another great fella. Brian's boots must have been size 5, you know, and trying to clean them was difficult than cleaning a size 9 or 10. Yeah, Brian was there, and obviously I kept in touch with Brian because I played against him when he was at Wrexham, and he managed Wrexham as well, and Doncaster. I mean, there were like Peter Lorimer, there was Paul Hart, there was John Lukic, Dave Seaman. The list is endless. But the guys that I played with was Terry Phelan, John Sheridan, Scott Sellers, Peter Swan. I could just go on and on. They were all players, Tommy Wright, all players that did really well in the career. Dennis Irwin was a very good friend at the time, another fantastic footballer and a fantastic guy as well.
Yeah. Roger, I was looking at your stats, and And I've taken them from Wikipedia, so that it might not be the best source in the world. But
Yeah.
you played your bulk of matches at Burnley, didn't you? Were you beset by injuries or bad fortune? What was it?
Well, the thing is, Alex, I wrote a book about 5 or 6 years ago, and the dream is for every boy to go and play football, be a professional footballer. And there's a lot of hard work that comes with that. But one thing that what's never said on the tin is that you're going into an industry where you've got to compete with boys that are as good and physically stronger, some a lot stronger than you. And I found going into the game is that my body really couldn't cope. It couldn't really cope with the challenges on a if you like, on a set period. I'd have some momentum, and then I'd get an injury. The injuries weren't just pulls. There were broken legs. There were numerous cartilage operations. So to try and get an actual run was so difficult for me. But when I did get the run, that's when I got a little bit of success and a lot of interest as well.
Yeah. When you're going through that period where you're struggling to get fit or get a game, what did that do to you? Did you ever think, oh, I've had enough of this? Or were you always absolutely, so determined that you would get this run of games? Did you ever feel like packing in?
Well, do you know what? Certainly, my first ever injury at Leeds United, I was 18 at the time, and we were playing against Blackburn Rovers in the reserves, and I was actually doing well. I was getting a lot of recognition. And I did my cartilage that game, and I was sat at the. It actually quite hurts. It's all those years ago. But I was actually sat on the physio's table, just getting treatment. And I remember Eddie coming up, and Jimmy Lumsden, who were the assistant manager at the time, he actually said I was going to make my debut on the Saturday against Derby, and that hurt. But then it was 6 months after that off, trying to get back, trying to get fit, breaking down. It's tough. It's tough for any sportsman.
Yeah, and I suppose you didn't have all that.
The injuries.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have had all that high-tech stuff that's out there now, would you? They wouldn't, put you in all these therapy pools and stuff, or?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, things were totally different, but I suppose for the time they had the most advanced equipment, what they did have. But one thing that they never used to speak about is, your mental health. There were no support. And, my biggest support at the time was probably Eddie Gray, because Eddie Gray had been through similar. He'd had a lot of injuries, but obviously great success. So, I could lean on him. There was always kind words. But to be honest, there were guys around the club at the time, guys not too much older than me, that had, the right attitude, and they used to support you as well,
Yeah. I was listening to Troy Deeney on the radio, actually, and he was talking about the role of the club captain, and he talked about some of the things that you just mentioned there about just having an eye and an ear for what was going on around the place. And it wasn't just down to the physios to make a player better. It was about the kind of a team ethic. But, do you see a big shift in football now to then? I mean, obviously there's huge amounts of money in it, but, a good footballer's a good footballer, aren't they? Or what would you say?
Yeah, it's the game has changed a lot. I'm not really sure whether we need certain elements in the game, because ultimately it is about winning, isn't it? It's about winning. People say it's about enjoyment, but when you're a professional footballer, you only enjoy the wins. It has changed. It's such a difficult question to ask, because from being on it as an outsider now, I do look and I do question why they need this, why don't they have that, why have they taken this out? I think from the injury prevention, and there's a lot being talked about on dementia and heading. I think that's important. I think that's important because it's clearly shown that, some of our pioneers are suffering. There has to be change, but it's such a hard question, because I don't really know which side of the fence to sit on, only other than that it is meant to be about entertainment,
Yeah.
and the supporters must be taken into question. It must be done for the supporters as well, you know.
Absolutely. Roger, do you remember, just going back to the religious aspect, do you
Yeah.
remember any of your peers being kind of religious? I mean, I know Burnley, for example, it's got a long association with players from Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and you know, it seems quite common now on the telly. A lot of these footballers raise their hands to the heavens and make the sign and
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
and that struck me when I was fortunate to visit the Bernabeu in Barcelona a few years ago, and noticed that actually in the tunnel there's actually a chapel on the way down to the pitch. I don't know if you've been there, but there's a chapel where the guys can go in
Yeah. Yeah.
a few moments. Did you encounter much kind of religious stuff as a pro?
Well, when I started at Leeds, I mean, there were lots of Scots and Irish, and if you like, my apprentice partner was Dennis Irwin, who's a Catholic. So, yeah, do you know, there is a lot of religion in football. Obviously, because the game's opened up even more to different cultures, I can only see that as a good thing. You know, you can actually see within the game how it has changed. I do think there has to be a good marry between football, sport, and religion. You know.
Yeah, I wonder how managers might be different to that now. You know, some managers are kind of just, you know, I've watched some great podcasts with Stan Turner and his
Yeah.
management style. Do you think managers are sympathetic to kind of the religious aspect, or is it just like not talked about?
Well, do you know what? I think there would have to be. I think, like I said, the way the game has changed, you've got to respect people, and religion's been here a lot longer than football. And like myself, like let's just say, for example, Paul Pogba, he's grown up with religion, so he's talented, but his religion will always come first.
Mm.
Which, for everybody, you know, you've got to respect that.
Yeah, yeah. You can imagine. I love seeing all that on the telly.
Of course, yeah,
It's a
yeah,
great way of evangelising.
yeah.
Now let's talk about Burnley, Roger, because
Mm.
I know a load of Burnley fans will want to get down to the Burnley career. Is it right you joined Burnley from Northwich, Victoria? The Wikipedia said you were at Northwich, Victoria. Is that true?
Yeah, do you know what? I spent some time, I think I played about 10 games at Northwich, Victoria, because I'd gone to Bury after I'd left Crewe. But I was just playing in their A team, and it got a little bit easy, to be honest. I mean, Bury had a fantastic first team. I couldn't break into there. I mean, I were in the squad. I can't tell you why I got omitted from the squad, and I ended up at Northwich. That was just through a lateness issue. But yes, I played at Northwich. It was interesting. I enjoyed it. Of course, I'd have rather been playing in the Football League, but I was there as, on there as, if you like, as a loan player.
Hmm. Yeah. Who was the manager at Burnley that got in touch? How did that come about? Was it Frank Casper or?
Yeah, well, Frank. Frank was when I was at Bury. He was the first team coach. A very good coach as well. And I was fortunate, really. Frank got the job at Burnley. Sam Ellis came in at Bury. I didn't even know Sam Ellis knew me, and I've never spoke. I'd heard through an agent that he wasn't offering me anything, but it turned out absolutely great, because to go to Burnley Football Club under Frank Casper, it was like a dream, absolute dream.
Yeah. Were you offered what contract did you get there? Was it a decent one, or I don't mean money? I'm not interested in that. But
Well, do you know what? Yeah, ultimately, I had to go and prove myself. So I were offered an initial year contract. But you know what? I'm always confident proving myself, as long as I stay clear from injury. And to be honest, I mean, Burnley Football Club, when you look at that, you look at the history of it, you look at the support, you know what? It's second to nobody, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful club. And
Yeah, it is.
and tell us about you talked about Eddie Gray. I mean, and talk about legends. Well, I know the Casper family, but Frank is one of the great legends at Burnley, isn't he? I didn't remember him as a footballer. Did you remember him, Roger, or not?
Do you know what? I don't remember him as much as through the playing. That's naturally you watch him a match of the day, and obviously, you know, Leeds United was my club. But I tell you what, though, Alex, when you meet a football man, you know, like I said, I met him first at Bury. You know a legend. You know somebody that's confident in his own ability. Because Frank was never flustered. Frank was this good-looking, calm guy who had time for everybody. And that's what set him apart. That if you ever meet legendary footballers, they're all the same. They've got the talent, they're calm, and they're willing to share what they've done. And, you know, Frank Casper was just that bloke. And I was fortunate, to be honest, very fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, who was Frank's assistant at that time?
Mick Doherty.
Mick Doherty.
Yeah. Mick was
Tommy's son. Well. Is that right? Tommy Doherty's son.
Tommy Doherty's son. Yeah.
And so getting into that, was it quite? So you were taken from Northwich. Did you have to work hard to get in get your place in the side, or did that come quite naturally?
No, do you know what? My first year at Burnley, it wasn't easy because I started, it's kind of strange. I started as a striker. I went into the game as a striker at Leeds United. But I had a lot of competition. Obviously, Tommy Wright was always going to be the main striker. So I ended up playing at the back with Dennis Irwin. So we had lots of success playing at the back in the youth teams and the reserves. But I also, in the reserves at Leeds United, I played right wing. So I'd sometimes play centre-back, play right wing, play right back, or play centre midfield, and occasionally play up front. So I could play in numerous positions. When I went to Burnley from Bury, I went to Burnley as a centre-back, but my natural position would probably have been as a striker or as a midfield player. So I started as a centre-back, which my game changed again. I was this physical centre-back, so anything that moved, I just had to kick, which isn't right, you know, but that's how it was. You know, I ended up being this aggressive centre-half player, centre-back.
Yeah. And just, Roger, just take us to the beginning of that championship winning season. When I was looking at it, I mean, I followed Burnley for years. Burnley were in that bottom tier for 7 seasons, 7 consecutive seasons. So at the beginning of this championship winning season, was there an early feeling that this could be the year? Was there a vibe going on in the squad? What was the feeling?
Well, I think it was the season before. I think Frank had just got everything right. His formations were right. He had plenty of pace up front. He had myself, John Francis. He had Ron Futcher and Stevie Harper. And towards the back end of that season, we were doing really well. We just missed out on the playoffs. But obviously, the time wasn't right. And unfortunately, we'd lost Ron, which had formed a really nice partnership with Ron Futcher. He moved on to Crewe. But then the fortunate side of it, Mick Conroy came and Frank paired us up together. And, you know, that worked really well as well. Yeah.
I was looking at that squad. There were some really good players in there, wasn't there? There was obviously yourself, Mike Conroy. And it's great just reminiscing because he was a tough old centre forward, wasn't he? He was big and strong, good with his head. And then there was, like you just said, John Francis, and people will remember Andy Marriott, the goalie, and Davis. Steve Davis was at the back there.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I mean, that's just naming a few. There was more. There was some fantastic players. Even to a point, like Graham Lancashire, a young lad, and he came into that side, and he had a right patch where I think he might have scored about 9 goals, and that was the injection that we needed, probably at that time. So there were a lot of competition. I think, you know, it was probably me and Mike that he wanted as the front two, but when Graham came, he pushed us both hard. Stevie Davis, John Pender at the back, you know, Ian Measham, Joey Jacob. You know, it just goes on.
It's a good squad, isn't it?
Yeah, but do you know what, Alex? When you trained with these guys, because I'd started at Leeds United, so if you like, they say that these players were a different class because it's first division, championship, second division then. But those players at Burnley Football Club were all fantastic footballers. Collectively, a training session, you knew you were in a training session with some of these guys.
Yeah. And winning promotion, I think it was at York City, weren't it?
It was, yeah.
And was it John Francis, wasn't it?
Yeah, John Francis. Yeah, John Francis scored. Yeah, I think Robbie Painter scored as well.
That was a night, though, wasn't it? That was the night. That was.
Oh, fantastic night! Unfortunately, the curse of the injury had got me. I'd missed the last 5 games of that season. So, do you know what? I'd made my own way. I followed the coach there.
Right.
And I was quite fortunate. I had to park probably about half a mile away. And I walked in with the Burnley supporters.
Really?
Naturally, I would have loved to have been on the pitch, naturally, and scored the winner. But to walk in with Burnley supporters, it was incredible. It had turned, York had turned into Burnley. It was just claret and blue everywhere, and it was just fantastic.
It's giving me goosebumps, that, because I know, I've followed Burnley all over, and as a priest and as a layperson, but the support at Burnley is incredible. It is absolutely. It is almost like an army, isn't it? And they go home and away, and yeah.
Alex, do you know what? It's incredible, but to be a player, and I was fortunate to be a player that they took to, and probably for about 3 seasons, they sung my name. And it took me about 10 years to get that out in the system, because, and it's hard to explain it. When you hear Turf Moor and you hear your name ringing around, to actually get over that and go and play for somebody else, it were really difficult, and for me, the supporters at Burnley Football Club, I'd walk over hot coals for them.
Why do you think they fell in love with you, Rog? What do you think it was? I mean,
I said earlier, Alex, that because my game, I could cross between two. I can be physical and I could be technical. I could be skillful. Maybe it was a bit of that because, listen, I used to try to work as hard as I could. If I needed to, I'd knock somebody into the stand. Naturally, I'd get knocked into the stand. But I tried to give everything that they would respond to and enjoy.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think, that was part of it,
Yeah.
I think they'd have to tell me what it was, but you know what? I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah. Can we just touch on working with Jimmy Mullen? I mean, Jimmy Mullen did great for the club, didn't he? And I don't know. I don't ever remember Jimmy Mullen coming back. These heroes, they come on the pitch at half time. I'd love to see Jimmy Mullen back at the ground because I actually think he'd get a very warm reception. But what do you reckon?
It's kind of a strange one because if you look at Jimmy's CV, he came in. He was actually Frank's assistant. He got the job from Frank, and Jimmy did obviously really well. He was the one who got us promotion. It's kind of strange because Jimmy had a unique way. He had a unique skill set of getting the best out of people, but then he had a unique skill set of upsetting people as well. So we don't even know whether that's unique to him or that's just in his nature. But Jimmy Mullen for Burnley Football Club, I'm sure he's well respected. Maybe he stayed there too long, I don't know, but I'm surprised he didn't do better in his career because he's had a few promotions at Burnley and did really, really well for him.
Yeah. I don't recall him seeing him there. I'd love to see him at Turf Moor.
Yeah.
And on the downside of a professional career, Roger, when you feel it's all coming to an end, what's that like for you?
Do you know, unfortunately, my time at Burnley, I would probably fit again. I think I'd had 4 knee operations. after that championship season. So it were a long haul to try and get back. And I'd finally got myself back. But, you know, certain players had obviously come in. The manager had spent the club's money. And it's not only until you finish that you know that he's not going to throw Roger Eli back in. So I was disappointed on, you know what, listen, I'm a tough guy. But when you look back as a 27-year-old, how I was treated, you know, having to train with the kids, having to come back for afternoon sessions, then having to train with the kids again and being made sub for the reserves. That's just really basically football's way of sickening a player out, a player off so he can just disappear. I was disappointed, I must admit. Not disappointed with the club, not disappointed with the supporters, disappointed with the coach at the time, the manager at the time, you know, and that's as blunt as I could actually say it. But, you know, years after, he did apologise. So I accepted his apology. It doesn't help at the time, but I kind of understand some people only know one way on how to move players on instead of, if you like, doing it the right way, to be honest.
Yeah. I interviewed Derek Scott, and you know, he talked very eloquently about, you know, footballer is a conveyor belt, the game, and some people stay on it for a full career from 18 to 38 or whatever.
Yeah,
some stay on it till 18, 19, and they fall away. It is very much like that, isn't it, Roger?
Do you know what, Alex? It really is. I mean, football's a tough game. It's even tougher than what people from the outside actually understand. There's the emotional side of it for a player. A player can be 100% fit and ready to go. And sometimes from the stand, we'll wonder why a player's performances has dipped, but we've got to remember that they're only human. There's all kinds of problems that can affect them. Some choose to stay in the game. That's even harder than what people can imagine, because there's only enough jobs for a certain number of people.
That's right.
Yeah, so, you know, fair play to anybody who stayed in the game. Would I have wanted to be on the football side of it? Absolutely not, because I'm going to be honest. To be fair, I like to be honest and truthful, and I do find the game, you've got to have a particular kind of mindset to be involved in that in that kind of sport, you know.
Yeah. And you went to China. Look, just Roger Eli went to China.
do you know what, Alex? It was one of the best things that I've ever done.
Really?
Absolutely incredible. You know, I went to China because of how I would train at Burnley. I had clubs wanting me to go down south to play. I'd had enough, absolutely had enough. But do you know what, China, I got a decent offer. And the experience was just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You know, you go on the other side of the world and you don't know people, you don't know anybody. But we had to do a fitness test. Every foreign national who goes into that league had to do a fitness test, a weeks-long fitness test. And when you pass it, the emotions are incredible. And I remember me passing it on the same day as two South Koreans, never met them before. And the elation and hugging, the hug that we gave each other, it just shows how football breaks down barriers.
Yeah.
And to go to China to play amongst, you know, a different culture was an incredible experience, you know, incredible. They're as passionate as what our supporters are over here.
Yeah. Did you go down there on your own, or did you go down with family as well? Or
no, I went by myself.
Wow.
Went by myself. I was fortunate. I mean, like I said, the contract was decent. They put me up in a nice hotel for the time I was there. They said they were giving me a company car, but it was a rickshaw. But it was fantastic. You know, I was 27 at the time, and I would say to anybody, if they have a chance to go and play abroad, you've got to go and do it. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, I'm a lot older now, but I can look back at that and think, wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, you've done it, haven't you?
Yeah, but one thing to that, you know, Alex, when I was 15, I had a chance to go out and play in Italy as well. And I never took that serious. And Lazio had come in for me, and I wish I had done. Because even if it had lasted 6 months to a year, I'd have looked back as another experience, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great lesson for life to encourage, you know, if those opportunities come along, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I laughed at you. I wasn't being disrespectful, but you know, you don't expect Roger Eli to go from Burnley to China, but
well, do you know what, Alex? Do you know what? I was the biggest player in the team and the area, so it was just actually great being the tallest person, you know. It was brilliant.
You scored a lot of goals.
Do you know what? I played in midfield. That's no excuse, but I'll use that as an excuse. No, I played in midfield there, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So you didn't score a lot of goals?
No, I think I got 2. So
I love it. And now, Roger, looking at Burnley in the Prem, you must be very proud of the club. I mean, it's totally transformed, hasn't it? It's, I mean, they've chosen. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to go down to Barnfield, but I mean, I used to go down to Gawthorpe a lot with my dogs and stuff, and it's completely transformed down there. It's incredible.
Yeah, do you know what? If I can only say that if you are a businessman, you've got to look at the 2 chairmen at Burnley, and you would say that's business what they've done. I mean, they've set Burnley a fantastic home on the training front. I've been there a few times. My son, well, I have 2 sons that were in academies. One doesn't play now for other reasons, but I'd been down there to watch him, and it's incredible. It's absolutely fantastic. And I would actually say, if any club goes up from the Championship, they've got to look at Burnley Football Club's model. It's like anything. Everybody wants a club to spend millions. Naturally, you want success, but I'm pretty sure, you know, Burnley will get success in one way or the other. But the success is getting back to the Premiership and having a fantastic fan base and having a fantastic training ground, which effectively will materialise into good things.
Yeah, and that squad's going to be good enough to stay up this year, do you think?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's quite unique because people talk about football about being modern football, but there's nothing modern of what Burnley do. It looks like these players play for the wages. Just back years ago, players played for the wages. You know, you played because you were proud to play for the football club. And there's a squad, there's a team that look like they play for the football club. Naturally, they're not going to be beating your Manchester Cities and Manchester Uniteds every week. But I tell you what, they are really, they're in a situation where clubs are going to fear going to Turf Moor and fear going to them as well.
Yeah. Roger, it's been an absolute delight for me talking to you. We chatted on the phone before, and I knew this was going to be a fascinating chat, and it has been. Just post-football, everything's going all right for the Elis, is it? Life's good? Except
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, everything's good. We just hope that, you know, life's going to be good for many people with this COVID situation. So lots of love to anybody who's suffering out there at the moment.
Yeah. It's been a rocky ride, hasn't it? It really has.
It has, Alex. And do you know what? I've touched on what you do for the community. And I've got the utmost respect and admiration for you. And we need more like you. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm still waiting for an invite for me to come and join you. In fact, I'm going to invite myself, Alex.
Well, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
Wait till we get the brews and biscuits back on, and
right, okay.
Wonderful. Yeah, Roger, it's been a real pleasure for me to talk to you. Thank you so much. I know Burnley fans and football fans are going to enjoy watching this, but You are really much loved at Turf Moor, and I just want to wish you all the best for 2021, and thanks for coming on the Godcast. For now, I'll say
Thank you very
bye.
much.
God bless, Rog. Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.